The first 60 seconds of Back to the Future reveal a darker detail about Doc Brown. Hidden by the movie, the opening scene of Back to the Future reveals a darker detail about Doc Brown, which was ultimately overshadowed by the events of the original movie. While watching Robert Zemeckis' beloved trilogy, it's hard to refrain from questioning how Doc Brown is able to fund his own inventions throughout the Back to the Future series. That being said, it's these quirky details, brought to life in movies, that make the films so engaging. Alongside Back to the Future's handling of alternating timelines, this establishes a solid foundation for many of the time travel elements in Back to the Future. The first film offers a relatively uncomplicated start, but the arrival of Back to the Future Part 2 unleashes considerable chaos that leads to 8 different timelines in Back to the Future upon the conclusion of the last film. Doc is the constant at the core of this chaos, and the actions of his character and Marty are the cause of numerous timeline deviations. That being said, Doc's character is incredibly complex, and one detail from the first Back to the Future film suggests that the inventor has had a much more difficult journey than was initially apparent. Doc Brown is introduced to Zemeckis' iconic franchise as a rambunctious scientist living in an extremely cluttered space. There are plenty of hidden story clues in Back to the Future, but one specific detail is quite easy to miss. Interestingly, the famous opening of Back to the Future includes a single frame showing Doc Brown was behind on numerous financial payments. At around the 0130 mark, one of Doc's numerous timepieces is shown to have an overdue bill lying across the top, hinting towards the possibility that the beloved character is facing financial hardship. It's a well-established fact in the franchise that Doc squandered his family's wealth on his scientific experiments. This is supported through multiple details throughout the movie, some of which are more obvious than others. For instance, there is a range of newspaper clippings in Back to the Future that reveal that Doc sold his large family estate, with one stating, "Bankrupt inventor sells off 435 prime acres." Besides this, another one reveals that Doc's mansion was burned down before the events of 1985, suggesting insurance fraud also helped finance his endeavors. Needless to say, this explains how the scientist funded his absurd experiments over the years. In addition to these minor details, Doc briefly corroborates this theory as he's presenting the DeLorean to Marty for the first time in Back to the Future, where he says, "It's taken me nearly 30 years and my entire family fortune to realize the vision of that day." Interestingly, this is the only explicit confirmation we receive of why Doc has so much money, with a large proportion requiring sharp-eyed viewers to notice the franchise's subtle details. Despite this, it's clear Doc relied on his family's money to pay for his experiments and never held a job throughout the series. At the end of Back to the Future Part 2, we see Doc Brown and Clara living as a family with their children. Even though this pushes the timeline even further astray, it definitely makes his financial sacrifices feel truly worthwhile. There is a fraction of viewers who disapprove of the concluding scenes of Back to the Future Part 2, mostly because the construction of another time machine contradicts Doc's earlier understanding of the DeLorean's dangers. While this may be difficult to reconcile with, Doc's ending is made significantly more poignant by it and his hidden hardships. Essentially, Doc loses one major fortune, but he gains another in terms of his family unit. Ultimately, this carries significantly greater importance and delivers a much more moving message to the audience. The trilogy's final moments underscore Doc's sacrifice of wealth for his scientific pursuits and emphasize his shift in priorities. Once valuing science over money, his stay in 1885 highlights his readiness to live without his past financial safety. Not to mention, Doc's ending in the Back to the Future trilogy reveals that his love for inventing remains, which is central to who his character truly is.